All right. Good morning. We are live. CliffCentral.com on, what is it today? It's a Tuesday morning. I've got Lebang
It's
and I've
a
got Mbulelo.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yes. Very, very nice. Only a few days left until the end of the year. For many people, maybe the last week at work this week. Because, from here on, you're going to try and make meetings happen. You're going to try and arrange stuff, and people are just going to say, not available.
Mm.
I'm away. Sorry. Nothing happens, right? Laziness kicks in.
It's already started.
No, big time.
Mm.
I'm ready for this holiday though. I need it, and I don't have a whole lot planned, but I'm excited to be able to do bugger all. Wake up late. I mean, it's the little things. Seriously, the little things like waking up late. When you wake up to do this show at like 5 every morning, it's I'm used to it. I won't lie. I know how it feels every day to wake up at this time, but you never really like get into it. You never go, "Oh, yay, 5. Woo! It's so great to be up at
Mm.
this time." Even if the sun is up in the middle of summer. It's better than winter when it's still dark by like 7. Anyway, Lebang thinks she may low key have been exposed to the the
Very low
Omicron
key.
variant. Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
Mbulelo
but
looks suspiciously.
look, Mbulelo, lucky for you, I'm not going to be in the office today, so you're safe. You're okay. All right. I know you're worried. Don't worry about it. I'll be cool. I think
No worry,
like I don't have any
not
any
worry.
symptoms. I may have been exposed to it. I mean, like I may have not. It's just one of those things. I'm feeling fine, but if I have, then oops. If I haven't, then we keep moving as well. I'm
Trust
I'm
me.
really not gonna make a hoo-ha out of this.
Well, he doesn't look like he's worried at all.
Not
Look at
one
the
bit.
man's face.
I
Doesn't
couldn't be
give a
less
shit.
worried. Yeah, I'm vaccinated. I'll be fine. Like all the best.
You
All the
know
best.
what? I have not been worried since day one. I'm not about to start now. And so far, I think, isn't it true that Alec Baldwin has killed more people than the Omicron variant?
Oh man,
He says
I
he
think
didn't pull
that's
the
true,
trigger.
right?
He said he
Gareth,
didn't pull
Yeah.
the trigger.
too
He
soon,
says he
too
didn't pull
soon.
the trigger. Like, who did then, Alec? Was it Jesus? Who?
No, he's not
You know?
answering that at this stage. Did
I
you
did
see the
see
interview?
no, but he did. Yeah, I saw a little bit of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he deleted all his social media in the last day or two. So there's something going on. I think his lawyers have said to him,
Mm,
"Just will you just shut up? You're like basically
mm.
perjuring yourself, you idiot. You're an actor. You're no good at anything but pretending, and this is not a great time to pretend." So we'll have to see what happens.
Shame.
But I mean, I think Alec Baldwin's a bit douchey. So he's also one of those sanctimonious actors he's really up his own ass. Like Alec Baldwin is the actor's actor. So anytime someone like that gets nailed for gross irresponsibility at least and criminality at worst, I'm always like, yeah, well, it's good because why should they be treated better than the rest of us? If you did that, you'd be in jail without bail. No one would be
Mm.
fucking lining up to tell you how great you were, would they? And this guy just like actors, it's amazing. Even when they are caught red-handed, they're still like, "Oh, it wasn't me." I mean, Jussie Smollett's the other one, right? He's being tried at the moment for his hoax, where he hoaxed a race crime. Like he made the whole thing up. He got these two Nigerian brothers to like stage an attack on him. And then he told everybody they were MAGA cap wearing white people who abused him for his race and his sexuality. It's like no one in the world cares about Jussie Smollett or his
How
blackness or
bold
gayness.
are they?
I mean, like, there's such a. I heard a brilliant thing. I said this before, I think, once when the whole thing happened and it was revealed to be a hoax. There's such an undersupply and an over demand for this stuff, this outrage stuff. And it's amazing to me how most of these hate crimes, like 98% of them, are bullshit. And they're absolutely bullshit. The real ones, straight away if it's, because you can tell, like, this is
Mm.
a real, for someone to do that, and I don't know how many people there are still in the world. It must be the same number of people who are serial killers or high school shooters or any of that stuff, who would actually go out of their way to victimize someone just because they're gay or just because they're black or just because they, uh, you know, uh, trance or whatever. It's always like people saying, "Oh, but it's so unsafe for these people." Like where? Not in America. Maybe in places like the Congo.
Hungary.
Exactly.
Well,
Poland.
it's illegal to
maybe.
be gay in Hungary now. I don't know if you know that.
Is it illegal? It's illegal?
Oh, yeah. No. It's completely illegal. It's written into the law.
Isn't it also
They seem to
in
think
China?
they're a
Isn't it
Budapest.
also and in China it's illegal too, isn't it? I mean, China's super conservative. That's what people don't get about China. And of course North Korea, but there everything's illegal.
And some
except eating
African
your children.
countries. Is it Ghana?
Yeah.
Uganda? Definitely.
Uganda, yeah, Uganda. Remember they had that pastor once who's like, eat the gay people, eat the poo-poo. Remember that guy? That was going around not so long ago.
Like ice cream.
But I mean, in America, and especially in Chicago, like how many right-wing, MAGA hat-wearing, Trump-supporting, racist, homophobes live in Chicago?
Not in the open anyway. Probably
no, but I mean, yeah, but you struggle to find them. I mean, like you have to really you have to turn over a lot of rocks to find those guys. Plus, if Jussie Smollett, this famous actor, walks in and makes himself known to them, they'll probably go, "Hey, it's that famous guy from TV." Not, "There's a gay black guy. Let's beat him up." You know,
was he the guy that acted in Empire?
Correct.
Oh my word, no, what was he doing? Oh, I know. That was so embarrassing.
He's ruined his career. I mean, the guy was earning like $100,000 an episode for being on that show. And that wasn't enough. He needed also to be like the victim of a hate crime. So he could up his, I don't know.
His street cred.
Social media stand.
That he set up himself. Oh.
I know. It's so embarrassing because now these two Nigerian brothers who he paid to attack him, and the whole thing was on camera, so it's not as if he can't like get out of this. It's all on camera. There were street cameras everywhere, and he knew there were cameras. Like, he's obviously not very bright.
Jesse,
what do you even I mean, it's so sad. It's so sad and pathetic. Anyway, we've got other things on our mind. Lebang has been ghosted by a friend. This is something which happens more and more. I hate this stuff so much. You know, I've never understood. Like, he thinks it's hilarious. I've never understood why people are so childish that they would ghost you. And let's just explain what ghosting is so everybody knows.
Like, just tell me if I suck.
Right. No, I can handle it. I can handle it. Not everybody's going to be your friend. And I've got lots of other friends, you know? Like, if you want to ghost me, at least say to me beforehand, "Listen, I don't like you. You are not my cup of tea. I don't get along with you. I don't like what you think. I don't like what you say. I hate the way you look. Whatever. Just give me a heads up, and then I will leave you alone. I'll leave you alone."
Honestly, we'll go where we are wanted, because clearly here we are not wanted. But it's even more rude to just disappear from my life, because here I am thinking everything's a party, we're all good, and then like now I'm just seeing on social media that I'm clearly being excluded from your life. And I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago I told you that I got an invite to my cousin's wedding via WhatsApp. Do you remember?
Oh,
you
yes.
guys were having me because I was making a big deal out of it. That same cousin deleted us, me and our friendship circle, he deleted us all of social media. He exited all of our WhatsApp groups. This was like now a space of like 8 weeks, right? We were like worried about him. Where is he? What's going on? So we leave it. His birthday is on the 3rd of December. Do we not see pictures of like a whole party with him and people and stuff? I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever. The next day is his bachelor's party. Guys, it was like people were everywhere having a good time. I'm like, oh my word, I got ghosted. This person has actually just chosen to leave me and go on with his life, which is cool. But tell me and say, look, bro, this is the direction I'm taking. I don't see you in my plans. Or, hey, I've got different interests from you. I'm out. Like, he's just, boom, gone, disappeared. Now I'm definitely not going to the wedding.
Do you think it had anything to do with you speaking about it on Africa's biggest podcast?
Look,
it might have.
If that's
in
the
the
case,
most derisory tone, by the way. No, not just talking about it.
Call me and say, yo, I heard you talking about my life on the show, and for that, I'm ghosting you. I would have been like, I bet, cool. I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
do. I'm a broadcaster. I speak about my life. And if you're worried about it, I'm sorry. But
you
that's
didn't
not the
mention
case.
any names, so it's
Yes,
not like
but people
you-
know who Lebang is, and they know who her cousin is. Like Lebang, so I like how Lebang thinks she's the victim now. I see how you've turned it around when you brought a family matter in public. Like, oh, who are you talking about with? Oh, do you know who Gareth
Look-
Cliff is? Yes, I know who Gareth Cliff is. Yes, I do. I was telling him, where in private? I can't believe it. No, it was online. It's going to live forever.
Mbulelo, I don't think people are that bored to go and see who I am and who my friends are and who my cousins are. They're not going to go and check, let alone.
That's where
the
you're
people that
wrong.
I'm-
Yeah,
come
you're.
on.
Oh,
Let
that's
me
where
tell
you're
you
wrong.
I
something.
don't know.
You have no idea the amount of time that some people have on their hands. You have no idea how bored some people are and how interested they are in your life. Like, let me tell you, some people are stalking people who are not even famous. You look at how people stalk their exes. They create new accounts on Instagram just to follow, like, their ex. Trust me, Lebang, there's someone out there who's researching you now, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's creepy as hell.
Let me stop them in their tracks. There's not much that you're gonna find. Like this is who I am. All that you see is all that I am. But the point is,
It's gonna be boring.
he's literally, just disappeared, right? And
Yeah.
I could sort of sense that it was coming because I told you that invite was dodgy. So I went as far as calling my aunt, who I don't speak to often, but I went and called and I was like, hey, is everything okay? I haven't heard from him. And she was like, well, look, I don't know. I mean, if he doesn't want to be friends with you anymore, he should just tell you, right? That's when the red flag hit. I'm like, so my aunt even knows that I'm getting ditched. Well, then he really should be able to tell me, because right now he just looks like a bit of a douchebag, not having the balls to just tell his friends of like 10 years and me, his cousin, that, hey, bro, peace, I'm out.
It's over,
It's weird. It's weird, but it happened, and it's my first time getting ghosted by a grown adult whilst I'm a grown adult, so I'm just like kind of dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, like Carl says, if he told you he was going to ghost you, then it wouldn't be ghosting, lol, obviously. But we're saying that there is a more mature way to behave than this,
Yeah.
And people do need hobbies, Ruth. I'm sorry, it is pathetic. People need to get hobbies, but they don't have hobbies. I know, like, grown men and women who are in the prime of their life. They're adult. They even have children and a family, and they like spend the entire day on social media trying to find out about their favorite celebrity. It's not even celebrities, frankly. Someone who they met at a party. It's weird. I mean, I do not understand it. Quentin says, you got to watch that Seinfeld episode where he has to break up with a friend.
I will.
And Dudley says, they're actually simplifying your life for you. Ignore them and move on. You don't need people like that in your life. You should thank them.
Yeah, rather. Let's keep it moving, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. What's more embarrassing about the Jussie Smollett story, according to Michael, is all the Hollywood personalities and media people who supported him. And the people who pay, and the Nigerian brothers didn't even hesitate to split on him, says Achtini Hawk. To be fair, I didn't even know who Jussie Smollett was before this bullshit, so it worked. He got the fame. Twat. Yeah. Okay. And then Carol's very happy with my Christmas tree in the background, which Lebang also commented on when we started the show. This
fancy, my word.
You like that?
It's very pretty. Yeah, look at that. It complements your
looks
hair.
quite nice.
There's a whole
My
vibe
hair,
going
right?
on there.
Yeah.
It
The
literally
Christmas
looks like
tree and my hair, we go together.
That's it. That's exactly what I'm seeing.
I've got to get into this. I love me some Christmas. There's no amount of Christmas that would make me bored. Can't get enough. Okay, I told you we decorated the tree at my parents' house yesterday. Well, not yesterday, on Sunday, with my two little nephews, and just to see the expression on their faces, it's like the best thing ever. You see, like, little kids getting excited about Christmas, and it just reminds you of how you used to, like, not go to sleep the night before because you were so excited, like, Father Christmas was coming, and then at that age where you discover, it was never with this fat man coming down the chimney, which should really be the kind of thing you warn children against. Kids, if someone comes into the house without telling us and they try to lure you with presents, that's usually the kind of person you should avoid.
Run.
No, we make an exception for Father Christmas.
Yeah,
That's a
no.
good point. That is a good point.
Yeah. You got to talk about this. Corona's Boring says unemployment among the Cuomo brothers has reached 100% in an ailing economy. Yeah, both Cuomos, they fired Chris Cuomo on CNN. So now he and his brother don't have jobs. They're going to have a boring Christmas. Imagine.
Yeah.
Terrible. Christmas is great, says Rebellious Ruth, except for Boney M. Are you kidding?
Why do
Boney M
people
is
hate
part of
Boney M?
I love Boney M. We used to have Boney M. What did we call it? Acclimatization lessons. When I still did like morning radio, we'd play the songs when I was doing like commercial music radio. We'd play the songs to acclimatize people to Boney M for a couple of weeks before Christmas, so they could get used to it and get ready. Because I tell you now, that music is designed to make you spend money. When you hear Boney M, you're like, "Where's my wallet? Gonna spend me some cash." It happens.
It's like high key Mariah Carey. Like Mariah Carey knows, like 25th of November, she is about to get paid every year without fail. Yo, I love it.
Yeah, she comes out of hibernation.
Pretty much.
She even takes the piss. She's got these videos of her like waking up in bed, and it says, Christmas is coming, and then Mariah's like cash register sounds start going on. Yeah, for sure.
I stand.
This is interesting. Okapotse says, I probably haven't spoken to some of my cousins since pre-pandemic. I hope they're alive. Sure.
Yikes.
Oh.
Yeah,
those fringe relationships before COVID are definitely disappeared now, right? Like no matter whether they're family or like an acquaintance, it's just
100%.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? Someone made the point earlier that it's actually they're doing you a favor, and I think maybe that's true. So if someone's ghosted you, maybe they're just saving you the trouble, and you can forget about them and move on with your life. I just think it's childish. Like, be brave enough to actually come up and say it to my face, you know?
But I've always wondered with this, like people who get broken up with always, because there's two types of people, right? Some people get upset that you broke up with me, and then the other person gets upset how you broke up with me. I've always wondered, is there a good way to deliver bad news? Like why are people more traumatized if it's ghosting versus, Lebang, take a seat. You know, we've had a good run. You're a good person. I'm a good person. We're just going that way. But it's like a crappy situation either way. Well, why does it matter?
The latter never happens because people are not brave enough to do that.
They're cowards.
They're cowards. And so the ghosting is like because if someone actually said to you, hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore, there's a part of you that has to respect them. You have to go, well, at least they had the balls to say that, you know? But if they ghost you, you kind of a bit disappointed because you're like, I really thought, especially if you did value the relationship, like I thought that person was better than that. And you thought maybe they had, maybe you're being met by expectations. I mean, your reality is meeting your expectations and you don't like the difference between the two. Maybe that's what it is.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. But also like generally, Mbulelo, imagine like creating memories with a person and really, you know, breaking boundaries with this person and living many, many years with this person. You guys depend on each other. You become so close. You actually end up loving each other as humans. Like the most dependable person. If there's anybody you can call right now and say, oh, I'm in a bit of a, trouble, that's the person that comes to your rescue. And then out of the purple, they just disappear. Like none of that matters anymore. You feel like a bit of a fool. Like, oh, so these past couple of years, were we just playing around? Or is this what you do? Do you go around creating these bonds everywhere you go with anyone that you meet? And then, like you sort of feel like a little bit of an idiot for really going all the way into this friendship, only for it to ultimately not have mattered to that person. And it sucks because now you put your wall up a bit more. And when you meet other people in future, you'll just be like, let me not put my all in because I've been burnt. And getting burnt in a friendship kind of feels a bit more so than getting burnt, in a relationship, because it's like, damn. I mean, with a relationship, it's like, okay, cool. I mean, whatever, shut. I can just keep it moving. But with the friendship, it's like you had plans for this to really be lifelong, or you'd hoped anyway. Now it just simply isn't, because clearly you were just being a puss. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, you were on a bit of a roll there. Did you hear all that, Mbulelo? Did that hit you in the field?
I was like, yesy. Oh my God.
Guys, this
Lebang's thoughts and
I'm
prayers.
Like she was talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was so real. I was like, by the way, Jesse Smollett just lost a job. You should be a method actor. Holy crap. Hey, that was heartfelt. I'm sorry to
Have you
hear
not listened to Life with Lebang? That's literally all I do. Every single Thursday. Yeah. That's literally what I do.
I've got to refer to this because we'll get to it a little bit later on. We're going to be talking about the 16 days of activism and whether or not there's any good being done there at all, because it's just something that people glom onto, and whether or not it's making a real difference, we'll have to discover later on in the show. But this is Daniela, who says that, and she's brought up something that a lot of people have been talking about, the Amanda Du-Pont story and Jub, which is, I mean, I didn't know about this until Friday last week. I saw it. I was at a coffee shop for a meeting, and I saw the newspaper on the table. I was like, oh no, I didn't even know Jub was still around, because I remember when he went to jail, and I remember Mama Jackie, remember her, his mother? I was like, shit, I didn't know this guy was still in the news. And then I saw, because Amanda Du-Pont used to work at Cliff Central. She had a show there for a while. She was a co-host on one of the shows and a regular guest. And I just thought, how's this happening? Like, what have I missed? Have I not been paying attention for this long? I felt completely out of it. And then I read just the first few lines of the story, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. But we will talk about it. And Daniela says the whole country needs to ghost him. And then Zuzile says, I don't agree with you, Daniela. You're among those who didn't watch the full podcast, because this all happened on Mac G's podcast. And by the way, one of his sponsors dropped him because, you know, he's controversial. These, if you're going to sponsor open, free conversation, real people, you got to have the balls to stick it out, guys. Like, yeah, I just want to say to these corporates who've got money to burn and who want to do things that are just always going to be perfect and always safe, that you are wasting your time. Those things don't exist, and they don't have the impact that you're hoping that they'll have. So have the bollocks to stick with someone. And if it's Mac G or it's us, I promise you, in the long run, those people who want to cancel you for your association are much fewer in number than the number of people who want to support those kinds of things. And if you want to be where the action is, and you want to have conversations that actually matter and that touch on real life, stick around. Don't drop out when it gets a little bit heated. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, these sponsors, that's the problem, is that they just hop onto whatever's like hot. You know, they want to be involved in anything that's fresh. And then when it gets a bit too real, they like sort of get pressured to pull out, and they listen to the wrong people, because most of the time these people aren't really like supporting them in any way, right? Do you think people that drink Amstel are sitting watching, you know, podcasts with Maggie? No, come on. So they were just like a little sign of a, you know, whatever, boom, run, gone. And it's problematic. If you are willing to sponsor the platform of that nature, you just have to stick it out. Otherwise, you'll just kind of look like you're there for the wrong reasons, and it becomes very, very obvious to the audience that you weren't here for the right reasons. You don't believe in these conversations and these platforms. So lame.
Right. David says, this is interesting. I did the staging for Boney M a few years back in PE. They are so shit. The band got stoned backstage. The monitor engineer couldn't mix anymore, and the bass player fell off stage during sound checks. Oh, that sounds like a party. Boney M. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Michelle's
that
Michelle's leveling some accusations at you, Lebang. You may be the ghoster in someone else's story too. We've all done ghosting. Works both ways. Ooh.
Hey man, Michelle, you know something I don't. Sure.
Yeah. Theron says, Zuzile, I agree with you. I'm glad that Mac G is suing. Oh wow, he's suing them, is he? That's interesting.
I think he's suing Amanda Du-Pont even. It could be.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh He is mad. Like he's big mad. Proper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
a lot of people saying it's all about the money, Bebop Williams. Yeah, listen, let me tell you, like there's always a controversy if you're willing to find one. And if you're looking for one, you'll find stuff. By the way, this morning, a little bit later on, we're going to speak to Greg Walsh about the video he posted about Matric Rage and, how people are still going to party even though he's cancelled Matric Rage, and how the media is just on this wild, mad tear. The mainstream media, like the corporate media, are on this mission to destroy the events industry because they want some villain in the COVID story. And we'll find out what Greg's point of view is on this. In case you didn't see the video, we'll see if we can't play that just to give you the context a little bit later on as well, because it's worth knowing what the story's all about and kind of having some idea of what everybody's talking about, because this is a big story in the media at the moment, and it's been made a big story by the media. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Don't you think suing people is all about ego? Well,
Gareth, what do you think?
Listen, in South Africa, you're never going to get huge settlements for defamation or crimen injuria. Those are the two categories that you can sue someone in a personal context for. And the settlements are small. It's not a lot of money. In America, you can sue for, millions and hundreds of millions. And there it might be worthwhile. But I think sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. Like if someone accuses you of something that is completely immoral and you're not guilty of it, it might be worth tracking that person down and actually holding them to the fire and saying, all right, you're going to accuse me of this. Like, bring your proof. But of course, you know what happens, right? Is in a civil case, you just have to prove on a balance of probabilities. So if I'm suing you, it's not criminal. Criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. So in the case of like an allegation of rape, let's say, you have to prove in a criminal case where the charges have been laid and it's going to court, the prosecution have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed the crime. Otherwise, you are not guilty of it. But in a civil suit, like a case where you're suing someone for defamation, they just have to prove, or you just have to prove on a balance of probabilities that they have done damage to you in some way, that your reputation's been besmirched, that you've suffered financial losses. But there has to be an actual way you can prove that you've lost value and money. And that's much harder to prove. And remember, all that the other side has to say is it's true. And it's in the public interest. If it's true and it's in the public interest, you're going to have a tough time suing that person. So I don't know. I think ego does play a role, but very seldom, because remember, the only people who benefit in a situation like that are usually the lawyers, because the lawyers make the money.
Yeah. I remember there was a time where a lot of, and I put inverted commas, South African celebrities, because we don't have any, were going on like a suing rampage where if you said anything, boom, you'd get sued for $1 million or you'd get sued for 500,000. And like they suing literally like nobodies, like kids that are just having fun on the timeline, or like
how many people, how many of those people actually got, were awarded the money? Very few.
Exactly. It literally went quiet. Like it was just like all this hype while it was happening. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sue you. Then they put like screen munches of their statements and what their lawyers said and blah blah blah, all the papers. And then like a week later, it's like, hey guys, my new single's coming out. It's like, okay, give us the update. Like, did you get your money or not? And obviously not. But it'll be interesting to see if somebody actually successfully, goes through with it. Because again, till today, like nobody has gone the full Monty with it. It just seems like it's all talk for hype's sake to look like they're doing something. And then like after that, it just fizzles out. So,
well, have I got a story for you on this front? A mentor of mine, his son got accused of rape a couple of years ago, and it turned out the girl was lying to the point where my mate had to move out of the country. What this other relatively famous person with rather prominent parents didn't know at the time was that my mate's dad is one of the richest people in South Africa. He continues to this day to bleed that family dry so much, right, that they had to like move out of the suburbs because he has run it, like he has taken it completely to the next level. You know, you got to be careful who you're messing with sometimes. He's
Yeah, but
still
can
dragging
I
them
tell
over
you
the
something?
coals today. And I think it's 18 years later. Yeah.
Oh my word.
But I think that's right.
I love it.
He's just
I love
lucky.
it.
He's just lucky he has the resources to do it. But if you make a false accusation, especially of something like murder or rape, like serious crimes, like people should go after you because that kind of thing sticks with you forever. I mean, I can recall like Makaya Ntini all those years ago. Do you remember? There was that woman who accused him of rape, and it turned out that she was making the whole thing up. Remember that?
Yeah.
But his reputation was ruined. He was dropped from the cricket team. Like it was all just a disaster for him from there on. So just like we've got to take rape seriously, and we've got to take allegations of false rape very seriously too. And there need to be consequences on both sides. Because if we're going to treat this thing with the respect it deserves and treat the victims of it, the real victims of it, with the respect they deserve, and we're going to actually solve gender-based violence, we cannot be half-assed. We can't be gray about this. It's got to be black or white. If you're guilty of this stuff, you should rot in jail. But if you're accused falsely of it, and the person accusing you should also go to jail. That's the way I see it anyway. But we'll talk about this later. I mean, we've got to get into it's such an ugly subject, but we've got to get into it because I'm like, unless we're going to sit down like adults and address this issue with the gravity it deserves, then we're never going to solve it. Then it's all just politicians talking about 16 days, blah, blah, blah. So let's save it for later. Anyway, some headlines for you this morning. There are a couple of stories that we need to get to before we talk to Greg. First of all, Cyril has slammed the West for vaccine apartheid. That's what he's called it. Yes, he used the word. And travel bans, while the EU has cautioned against dramatic statements. So he has made an impassioned plea to end the travel bans that have been imposed by Western countries on South Africa during a conference in Dakar on Monday. The European Council President Charles Michel would not make any commitment on whether they'll reconsider their stance on the matter. Well, you know what, Europe? Then you don't get our tourism money. And all your tourists who aren't coming here, I'm very, very sorry for them because they should be here. They should be here. They should be having a good time here in South Africa. I'm disappointed in you. I'm with Cyril on this one. Who knew? I'm totally with Cyril.
Wow, that explains a lot.
Now, this man is made of something. I'm telling you, there's something in that royal blood of the Zulus because Mangosuthu Buthelezi has tested positive for COVID-19 again. And the man is old. The only thing he regrets about being tested positive again for COVID is being unable to attend the installation ceremony of the Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, Dr. Precious Moloi-Motsepe. He said that was what he was looking forward to. This man is unreal, hey? He's 90. How old is he? 95?
Jeez.
I mean, it's unbelievable. The guy he's really, whatever he's made of, we should all wish to be made of the same stuff.
Yeah, him and the Queen, eh? Uh-huh.
Yeah, unstoppable, though. There's something about this royal blood. You might not be a fan of royalty, but there's something about them that they lost a long time.
Oh, it's called doing nothing your whole life. Like you've never suffered. You're just sleeping from 13 and you've got everything.
Okay, then maybe that's it. Hey, probably you're right. 9 armed suspects descended on a Hermanus business premises and made off with liquor to the value of 93,000 rand.
That's in the news?
Well, let me tell you, 93,000 rands worth of liquor is a lot.
Yes.
I don't know how much is the most you've ever bought for a party, or if you had to go and, like when we've had like staff functions and Christmas parties, I've never spent anything close to even 10 grand on liquor. You get a lot for 10 grand. This is 93,000 rand. Yo.
Yeah, it's a lot, but then there's a lot. I mean, I remember I used to host events, so I've like purchased big bulks of like liquor. That's a lot, but like there's a lot, guys. I mean, to steal that much, sharp. No, that's
so
the
jackpot. You don't think this is a big deal?
To be in the news, so some guys got away with liquor. Well done, gents.
All right, okay, fair enough. You want some more news?
Yeah, just
You
one
sure?
more too.
One more. Okay. So they're marking the matric exams that got underway this week. So matrics will be getting their results either right at the end. They always give it to you like after Christmas and before New Year, or if they messing around after New Year. But it's like they should really try and give it to you before Christmas so you can enjoy your holidays. But I understand they've got to mark a lot of these things,
I
right?
don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I want it then. You want it after New Year,
After,
because
yeah.
You reckon?
I was fortunate was that I kind of ran away from home straight after my matric exam. So when I got it, but I remember thinking, yo, that must be a crap feeling. That must be a
Dude,
crap
like
feeling.
that pressure of like going through the newspaper looking for your name. And like I don't know if they still do that. But do you remember back in the day it was like you're looking for your surname and your name. If it doesn't
Oh my
pitch,
God.
you're
Oh,
screwed. Oh, dude, that
but it's
pressure
not just
sucks.
so for me I wasn't ever really afraid that I was going to fail, but I was embarrassed because there were so many overachievers in my class that I was like, ugh, I have to at least get one or two A's so that I can have something that's that compares with all my friends, because they were all overachievers. I was useless. I think I got two, maybe three. I don't even remember. Now it matters that little to me that I don't remember. But at that time, it was everything, right?
It was everything. Yo, it was make or break.
Everything. I know.
Like I'm quite comfortably the dumbest person in my family. So for me, it was always a whole situation, right? Like all of my family, like my dad
Yeah.
and my sister are literally 100% for mathematics, blah, 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 that whole
Oh my God.
scene. So for me, it was always like, no hope, I'm not going to try anyway, kind
Yeah.
of thing. I mean, also it doesn't help when you're
Oh,
not
God.
smart.
So those are the main news stories. You don't need to know much more than that. I think that's quite enough for this morning. But I'll tell you what, while we're talking about matrics, this video went viral on Sunday, I think, when Greg Welsh, who is one of the founders and the organizers of Belito and Plet Rage, which is what matrics do and have done for, I don't know, since time immemorial. I mean, the actual organized event is something relatively new, but people used to go on matric holidays like when I was at school. And it's something that people look forward to all year. And let me tell you, the last 2 years have got to have been the most bullshit 2 years for matrics ever. There's been nothing to look forward to, thanks to COVID and everything being, locked down and shut down, and people being told that they can't go and have a good time. And I mean, there are people who think that that's probably a good thing. They think that it's kept families safe and all of that stuff. But I feel that Greg touched a nerve for a lot of people, because it went viral, this video of his, where he said that the media are trying to find someone to blame. And I think that that's probably the way a lot of people feel. Anyway, I'm going to let him explain it in his own words and tell us what's been happening on that front. Here's Greg Walsh. Hey, Greg, how's it, man?
Hey, Gareth. Morning.
Good, good, good. So listen, your video went everywhere.
I made a thing.
You made a thing, and it's now you can say you went viral, not just your events.
And I know what it's like to be one of those, social media influencers when you say something controversial and the world just.
So listen,
I know what it's like to be you.
Dude, you were even more controversial maybe last year, because you guys got blamed for the second wave. I mean, the president mentioned matric rage in his speech to the nation when he locked us down in December last year. And
Yep.
I'm I want you to explain from your point of view what's happened and where you're at and why you decided to make that video.
So I think the quick transition from, being blamed as the super spreader and the cause of the second wave of COVID-19 was a gut-wrenching time. It was very, very difficult to be the center of a media scandal of that scale that kind of ended with the crescendo of the president saying our name on TV. And I think we were getting blamed for a lot that wasn't necessarily factual, because one has to remember that in a week cycle of a holiday, when you go away, you fly there, you stay in a hotel, you meet up with friends at the pool, you go to the beach together. A lot of people went to nightclubs that were trading illegally at the time in Durban. And then also came to our outdoor high airflow spaces for, at the time, 500 people exclusively. And
Right.
to be honest, last year, our events weren't particularly popular because at the last minute, the liquor board didn't grant us a liquor license. So 2020 aside, it was a crap time. I think
you couldn't even serve liquor last year.
So we couldn't serve liquor. So take yourself, you're a matric, the energy's high, you've had pre-drinks at home, you ride the shuttle to Rage Festival, Black Coffee's playing that night, it's going to be awesome. You walk in and you can't buy a drink. I mean, for us as a brand, it was disaster. But people walked in, spent 5 minutes, turned around, walked out, got an Uber, Florida Road, and all the images that circulated on social media of this were from nightclubs that we had nothing to do with. But we took
But you got the blame.
We took the blame. There was no opportunity to defend ourselves because the media was too hysterical at the time about it. So I kind of want to move on from 2020. It's a painful hatch that maybe I put a lid on.
So then 2021 rolls around, and you have to decide whether or not you're going to do Matric Rage.
Correct. And knowing that there would be huge scrutiny.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying, why did you even bother?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that gave us confidence was just looking abroad. I mean, in countries like the UK and the US, where infections were topping 50 to 100,000 new infections a day, they deemed it appropriate and morally acceptable to open gatherings of numbers in excess of 100,000 a day either for vaccinated attendees or for vaccinated plus tested unvaccinated or for fully tested crowds. And over time, they even started to drop some of those requirements as the scientific data started to demonstrate that particularly outdoor gatherings were of very low material impact to COVID-19 health data, whether there was a surge in COVID-19 or not. And I think it's a celebration of a society that doesn't blame and that finds ways to support its citizens' rights to demonstrate their craft, whatever their craft may be, even if that is 100,000 people in a stadium. So I think that was the first one to go, look, it's happening overseas. The science and the data are supporting that it's possible. And we're going to do something quite unique in South Africa. We're going to be the first organization to heed the president's call before Discovery, before MTN, before anybody came out with it. And we said no vaccine, no entry for an event that, quite frankly, has a demographic of people who are mostly asymptomatic to the virus anyway. So no vaccine, no entry. Bring a negative PCR test before you come. And then we're going to test you on site at the festival as well. And our feeling was, by the time, and Gareth, we presented to local departments, provincial departments of health. We presented to the local CDC committees, the NICD. We even presented 4 weeks ago to the IMT, the Interministerial Task Team for COVID-19, that they are the guys that advise the Coronavirus Command Council. And we were met with almost applause. They were going, this is a fantastic thing you're doing, and it's a fantastic case study for us. So blessings, go on. The local municipalities, please proceed. We want you in our town. Here's your letters of support. Local SAPs, the regulations permit what you're doing. And even after the president spoke up on the Sunday night right before, and I think that's really what sent the media hysterical when our prez, much as I really like him, said, we must be very careful of post-matric celebrations and matric raves. He didn't single out this time our event, which I thought was interesting. And I don't disagree with him that unregulated, indoor, uncontrolled partying of unvaccinated 18-year-olds possibly poses a threat to health. But what we were doing doesn't. And science globally has proved that. So, that's what gave us the confidence to proceed. We had permission, and it was legal. It's our constitutional right to run a business within the regulations.
Sure. And I mean, you ticked all these boxes, and if people want to level accusations at you that it was unsafe and all the rest, you've got all the documentation to prove otherwise. But then you decided to call it off anyway.
Correct. That was purely mounting media pressure. There was no regulator. It was not that we hadn't got permission. Everything was in place. We were getting this wave and this pressure from the media that were pressing down. And Gareth, you know what it's like when the media close in on you for something controversial. And there's no right of reply. There's no opportunity to speak back.
Right.
And the pressure wasn't just mounting on us, it was mounting on high-ranking politicians. And I talk about people like the Premier of the Western Cape, the MEC of KZN, and they were put in positions as well. And I understand, and I support the calls that they made as well. You know, the morning after the first day at Ballito Rage, we had tested 940 people at our testing center, and 36 tested positive. And the conversation from the Department of Health and the MEC was, look, guys, what you're doing is unbelievable. And we agree, in the interests of public health, better to continue and test everyone today again, and party and test and party and test, than now to shut it down and leave unregulated partying. Totally agree with you. But the scrutiny on us, and we're warning you, the scrutiny on you is going to be unbearable, because every case you identified before you opened your doors can't be blamed on you. It was before you started. Every single case that now you report, because you're the ones testing, that you report now will be your rage cases. And the media are going to blame you. And the media are going to blame us as municipalities for permitting this. And although your data is under a quarter of the positivity rate of the national average on the same day, it almost doesn't matter. It's the story and the narrative.
In other words, you screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. By doing the right thing and reporting, right, and by reporting the number of cases that you discovered by testing at your expense at the events, you get into trouble for that. I mean, it's
correct.
Okay, so who are these?
Judge, and the word that I used yesterday in my now influencer viral video was blame, and that's what you touched on at the beginning of the speech, and that's what, if we've still got time, I'd love to talk about, is the way media are blaming organizations and individuals for the spread of COVID-19, and it's a global thing, but it's a very much a South African thing of telling people how it's in your hands and you must do this and that because otherwise you will get locked down. And you know, how can you blame people for the community transmission of an airborne virus which is invisible? We know, we've seen the waves. The waves are agnostic of behavior.
Correct. I mean, you know, in America at the moment, the state with the least COVID cases and hospitalizations and deaths is Florida, where they have no mask mandate, where they don't have any vaccine mandate, where they're not doing compulsory testing. And the states where they're the strictest are the ones where it seems to be spreading the most. That's just a fact that is very inconvenient for all the people in the media. So these media people, like, what kind of stuff have they been saying? And what has irritated you to the point where you decided to make a video? Because you could have just quietly gone into, you know, your holiday, because frankly, you can't have your events now. You've lost a ton of money. But what are you making this video for? Like, who are you angry with, and why this media thing?
I'm making the video for the events and entertainment industry because it's bullshit. It needs to be opened. It can be opened safely. We know that there's global data to support it. And gee, what irritated me more than anything was misreporting, hysterical images. Firstly, media, we know, and unfortunately it's a societal thing. We have 7-second attention spans. We read a headline, we check the image, we go straight to the comments. We don't read the article. So even where media were giving a balanced report where they included the comments we had given them, there would be outrage over rage with a picture of 5,000 people from 3 years ago at a time when it was fine to do so, and then the comments rage on. There were statements made in the media by reputable media houses that said things like, this is going to be a burden on society, that there are going to be thousands and thousands of people, after we continually told them that the number was 1,400 per city that we had decided on. So they were talking about crowds and thousands. They kept talking about indoors with no ventilation when we were only running 2 outdoor venues. They kept talking about the fact that within this community, we know that 18-year-olds and younger people is a very low vaccination uptake and rate, when in fact we had continually told them that our events were a no vaccine, no entry environment for all staff and all customers. So this is the narrative that kept getting spread. And every time we would go and send a statement to media or send them an update on what they said, there was no right of reply. And they could then respin the same story, bring on what they deemed experts from education, experts from health, experts from science, people we hadn't dealt with, of course, who would come out as experts on their platform and talk about these crowded indoor spaces of unvaccinated people, then taking the virus back to their communities of grandparents and parents with comorbidities who are unvaccinated and vulnerable. And
who's doing? Okay, so who's
saying this?
So who's doing this? I mean, is it newspapers? Is it TV news? What is it?
I mean, how much shaming and blaming is appropriate on your platform?
Whatever you
I suppose they've all called me out by name. Number one, antagonist ENCA. I mean, they were hiding in the bushes outside our event for the 5-day build-up, reporting live, breaking news. We were the top story of breaking news for 5 days on ENCA, a party for 1,400 18-year-old vaccinated kids. That's breaking news when we've got murders and all kinds of stuff in this country. They were the worst. I think another one, the rest, it's across the board. I think they were certainly the worst. They were probably leading the hysteria. And, a lot of what I find media do is copy paste from each other. Sure. I think the Times Live group, Arena Media, the News 24 group, a lot of guilty reporters there on News 24. But it was across the board. And then on the other side, there was some really honest and factual reporting. People like the Daily Maverick, the Mercury in Durban. And I think to the media houses that gave a balanced account and only gave facts, I support you and I applaud you, and more of you guys.
Yeah.
So Greg, I wanted to ask you something, just because there, for all of my sins, I have family who work in government. There's not a single person in South African government I trust. And I find all of them revolting, quite frankly. So I know how they work. You've obviously built a great business. I don't know you. I've never been involved with any of your stuff. I've never worked with you. But shot for VIP, by the way, in Plet. Phenomenal day. Anyway, that's besides the point. I kind of sense a little bit of what I've seen the ANC doing before and the South African government doing before, because they don't like to build new things. I have a huge suspicion there is also this at play, and you don't have to answer if it puts you in an awkward position. They can see you've got a great business. They want to move in on what you're doing. And we know that the ENCA is a part of the ANC arm. I don't care what anybody says. That is true. That is absolutely valid. And I have no shame. And I'm saying that. Nobody else is saying that. Do you think they are trying to crush your business to the point where you're out? And then some ANC cadre can...
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, and I echo many of your feelings towards government. I think that our government's been letting our society down for the longest time on almost every measurable point. But I don't know that it's that. I think it all came off the 2020 hysteria. I think that 2020 super spreader rage, grizzly, drooling, profiteering rage organizer. That's me, in case anyone was unaware. Actually, just nice guy, recently dad, good friend of Gareth too.
Whoa! Don't link the two. Being a dad doesn't necessarily make you a nice guy, Greg. Please don't link those two.
Exactly.
I'm a great dad.
I'm
a great dad with a cute kid. So yeah,
okay. I want to ask you
I don't know
something.
that it's that. Yeah.
There were a lot of parents who are totally okay with matric rage. They wouldn't have given their kids the go-ahead to go and do it. But there were also some parents who were extremely nervous about this. And I remember last year with the super spreader thing, there were a lot of parents who were like genuinely concerned that their kids would come back, and some did, and make the whole family sick. So it did happen. You guys must have talked about that. You must have had some conversations. You must have had to jump over a few hurdles. That stuff was obviously foremost in your mind as well, right?
100%. And I think what gave us comfort is there's enough data to suggest that these vaccinations do work. They lower symptoms. There's no question. They reduce hospital admissions and deaths. And these are vaccinated kids from vaccinated families. And there's been no shortage of media hysteria to raise alarm bells for anyone who decided, and I say to send their child, but we're talking about 18-year-old consenting, voting adults. I mean, I still often think of them as children, and I think their parents think of them as children. But by law, these are consenting adults who can be charged in court and sent to prison. They're consenting adults who decided, or whose parents were happy to send them and fund it. everyone had all the facts to make the decisions with. Not only did they have the facts, they even had non-factual hysteria to still use as part of their decision-making process. And they felt strongly enough that their kids deserved this. The kids felt strongly enough that they deserved it, that it was their rights and their time. And they'd gone and done the right thing as 18-year-olds and got vaccinated. Not that many 18-year-olds have been vaccinated in our country as a percentage. I think it's under 15%. So they went and did the right thing. They knew the risks. Their families knew the risks. And let's be honest, with where we are right now, those risks with vaccination and all the testing we were doing were extremely low.
All right. So Lebang's been quiet here, and you've been in the events industry too, Lebang. I mean, what do you make of this? And if you think Greg's talking nonsense, give him some gears.
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Like I'm sitting here listening to all of this, and I think like on one end, it's quite clear that government is just looking to blame anybody. It just happened to be you guys this time. It was like low-hanging fruit for them to be able to shift the blame and say, those are the guys, blah, 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 blah. But like on the other hand, I did attend some of these raves, especially down in Durban back in my year. And, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of chaos. And this was all pre-COVID. So, I guess it was safer or whatever the case. But as the years have gone by and you see how these kids are having fun and really going at it, I don't know if, the parent in me, I mean, I'm a mother of 4. So the parent in me is a little bit like, I don't know if I would trust my kids to be responsible enough to go out there and make the right decisions when they are out there interacting with these other kids. And on top of that, there's parents who really aren't playing their part with regards to how much trust they have. I mean, there's a guy in the States who took his 9-year-old to a Travis Scott concert, and unfortunately that 9-year-old lost their life. Yeah. So I don't know if the parents are playing their part in really thinking this through. But again, as somebody who attended Rage, and thank you, Mom and Dad, for allowing me to do so, I was responsible enough to do it responsibly. I'm just a bit unsure if it's that important, I guess. I mean, as an event organizer myself, sure, this is your business. You got to do what you got to do. But right now, I don't know. But yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence, to be honest with you. As Gareth said, this is like, I'm sitting here taking it all and like, okay, cool. But
okay, so what do you say? And what do you say to that, Greg?
Yeah.
I say that we've got nearly 3 million newly unemployed people in South Africa, and an enormous chunk of them have come from the events, hospitality, and tourism industry. And I think we've got a much bigger looming issue if we're shutting down well-managed, safe events. I totally hear what you're saying. I think every year, if I look at our audience, we get 95% wonderful, well-brought up, well-mannered, well-behaved, responsible young people coming to our events. And we get 5% troublemaking, badly raised, poorly parented shit stirrers coming to our events. And we've got to deal with them. And I think that's the same of most environments of live entertainment. The number of people that walk out of our events and say, "Thank you, sir," to me, I mean, they didn't. They used to call me Brew and Bro, and now they call me Sir. But, we've got such a cool community of respectful kids who are mostly well-raised. And Gareth, I remember you watched the Carte Blanche episode in 2015 when Claire Moisa came down to Belito Rage, and she spent a full 5 days at the event. They grilled me in an interview, Carte Blanche. I thought it was going to be the ultimate roasting of Greg Welsh and Carte Blanche. And you phoned me after the interview and you said, "Greg, how much did you pay for that advertorial?" And I didn't. Carte Blanche don't do advertorials. And Carte Blanche are there to be investigative journalists. They hung out at the toilets. They hung out at the door. They rode the Rage Rides shuttles. They went to the hotels. They interviewed parents. There were parents who came on Carte Blanche and were sort of, investigative journalist style, antagonized by the reporters. "Why did you send your kids to this thing?" And the parents said, "If you've done a good job as a parent, you have nothing to worry about." And I loved that statement. And the other statement I loved right at the end of the Carte Blanche segment was when Claire was standing on the bridgeway out at just next to the Oyster Box in Mshlanga, and she said, "If I had the choice to send my child here to Belito Rage, the answer would be yes." And that was Carte Blanche. So, we've got, yes, it's a high energy environment. It's celebration. It's a party. It's fun. It's, one can say it's wild, but we were all 18 once. why not? We have 40 to 50 volunteers every year from the Red Frogs who are there just in support, making people pancakes, handing out water, lending a hand, phoning a parent if you need. We've got hundreds of security. You aren't allowed to drive to the events. You have to use the shuttles provided. If that's not acceptable, what is?
Well, Carl says here, your kid can go to Pick and Pay and get COVID and come home and make the whole family sick. Fuck the media. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there are lots of people supporting you. There are going to be people who think that you shouldn't be in business doing what you do just because there are going to be bad apples. And in events, you have risks. I mean, you go out at night and you're gonna meet with risks. You get in your car in the morning to go to work and you meet with risks. But I thought it would be interesting to have you on. Thanks for talking to us, and good luck with this fight for the events business, because I don't know how much more it can take. And if they are going to bring on more restrictions and lockdowns, and there's going to be a fourth wave conversation, I don't know how many businesses will survive that. I mean, some of them are on the bones of their ass anyway. So good luck.
Although we had a wonderful, successful organization, we're also on the bones of our asses. I haven't taken a salary in 12 months. And I've personally been funding the salary of my staff by selling assets. I've sold properties to do it that I worked hard for years to build up. This is not a pity session, but it's real out there. And something has to change. Events can happen safely, but they can only happen safely when the narrative changes. And that's got to come from government, from health, and from media to support the events industry, to do study, to do research, to test if it's safe, to test data on events versus public health data. We already know the answers because they've been tested overseas, but it's time to stand up and support the events industry.
Okay, so Brian has one last comment on this. Greg, your only mistake was not organizing a parallel middle-aged dad body rage for our generation. That's what you need.
I've been asked by I've got a lot of comments. I'm trying to get through them, but there's a lot of people that are saying, well, what about me? Like, we went to rage and now it's 25 years later and we want something.
Maybe that's what you gotta do.
Let's get the Goose Valley. Let's get the guys. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. We want that shuttle from Goose Valley. Yeah, that terrible walk to the gate.
We got to wrap this up. Greg, thanks, man. Chat to you soon.
Guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, very good. These two sort of powerhouses, that their names were eventually the names of companies. He electrocuted an elephant, had people's pets stolen.
And he basically took the money for the university. He spent it all on gambling.
Tesla, who was much smarter, let the AC current flow through him to light up some light bulbs. That pigeon would have got the lion's share of his estate if she just outlived him. Suffer from collectivism?
I've got this love affair with French antiques.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
This is a King's African Rifles bayonet.
Are you a fanatic, a devotee, Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
I've got like 4 or 5 really big trunks in the garage that are full of my Christmas decoration collection.
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating,
Then you get the limited editions that were like 100 made worldwide.
possibly a little weird.
So I have a collection of collections.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. Yebo. All right. CliffCentral.com. It is a Tuesday morning. We've got Lebang Hosana. We've got Mbulelo Tinta. You sounded like you were really excited by the idea of having a matric rage at your age now, Mbulelo. You were getting into that in a big way.
Are you joking? Listen, when I went, all right. Oh my goodness, the best. Plus, we did a full lads tour as well. So you must know, I went overseas. I got my football sign-on check, right, which was, when I think about it, insane. And I came back with 2 sportsmen that also got professional sports contracts. We started in Durban and ended up in Plett. It was insane. It was like maybe the best 2 weeks of my life. Oh, man, it's unbelievable.
It sounds phenomenal.
Oh,
I don't remember much from like that whole week. It really is just a blur. It was just chaos and alcohol consumption and like stuff consumption and just messy. Very, very. I don't remember much. I just know I must have had fun because, I mean, what else was I doing down there? I just can't, like, I don't know if I can picture my kids doing that. And I guess it's a bit selfish because, I mean, I went and I had a rad time, but yeah, I shall see.
I didn't.
Gareth, what was it like DJing?
I didn't have a matric holiday. No, well, I'll tell you about that in a second.
Whoa, sorry. What?
No.
Yeah.
You never
I
went to
didn't.
matric holiday?
I didn't. I stayed at home. I did absolutely bugger all. I saw some of my friends over that holiday, but I didn't go on a matric holiday.
Sorry?
I promise you, for some reason it went right. I didn't do any of that. Listen, the first time I'd ever been drunk in my life, I was 20, so I was a late starter.
Me too. I didn't drink till after school.
Turbo nerd. No, dude, I was a turbo nerd. I was more interested in like just chilling at home. And I think I'm still like that largely, but I think I made up for it when I was DJing because those parties were amazing. I mean, you know, everybody always tends to think about those things as being you take the worst thing that happens there and that's your memory of it. Or if you're lucky enough, the best thing that happens there. But as a whole, I mean, I remember I've done so many New Year's Eve parties where I was the only person who, apart from, say, Greg, who was the organizer of these things, I was the only person who was totally sober the whole night. And I could take it all in. And of course, you know, they're really drunk people who are like breaking bottles and swearing at each other and getting into fights. But that's the minority. Most of it is just people having fun and being around each other and socializing and having a good time. And there was always more happiness and joy and excitement around these things than there ever was controversy. But people are determined sometimes to be the fun police. I suppose maybe part of me is a little bit resentful that I didn't have a matric holiday now that I look back, because it seems like a fun thing. And I see all these, I mean, I haven't done matric rage for years in terms of DJing. I haven't done it for probably 10 years. And I don't think I would ever do it again. But in fact, I know I would never do it again. But I remember going to those parties and DJing and just seeing how happy these kids were to finally be finished with school, to be on a holiday with their friends for the first time, kind of in charge of their own lives and having a good time of it. I don't remember anyone in my year who had like a massive blowout. People went down to the coast, but they were mostly with their families. So it wasn't like they were doing that in my year. But clearly what you guys had was a whole different experience. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a jolt. But I just need to mention, Gareth, that like the game has changed quite deeply, including the groove game, the turn-up game, the party game, or whatever you want to call it. Back then, partying was exactly that. It was just fun. It was just good vibes, good energy. Everybody in almost, I can say, a safe space, just all wanting to achieve the same thing, which is to enjoy having finished school and just being, going off for a change. now it's almost like people don't party for the same reasons. There's a little bit of like a weird energy. And obviously this is not a blanket that I'm applying to every single groove, but generally
Yeah.
people are going out to intentionally hurt other people. They're going out to mug you. They're going out to rape girls. They're
Yeah,
going out to
listen,
spike
I mean,
drinks. It's just messy now. It's
you
getting messier and
you know,
messier.
so especially during lockdown, I think what's happened is a lot of people, because the events businesses, the underground stuff that's been happening, that hasn't stopped. Like there's still people having like wild house parties and their underground speakeasy type clubs, and there are places like in Cape Town, Durban, Joburg that you can go out. I know because friends of mine have been to them, where you can go out until 4 or 5 in the morning, and nobody's there. I mean, didn't the new mayor of Joburg, Mpho Palat, she went with the cops and they raided a couple of clubs over the weekend. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they found people partying after curfew. No one's wearing masks. People are drinking. They're taking drugs. They're doing all kinds of things. So I hear what you're saying. It's going to happen anyway. And it's especially, you know what happens in any society. I mean, this happened during the Prohibition in America. When you make something illegal or regulate it to the point where people feel that they only have one option, that is to take it underground, that's when things get really messy. And you can see, you can see also in these 2 years, all over the world, they've, young people, like none of us are young enough to get away with this anymore. But if you were 20 now and you wanted to go out and you wanted to party and be with your friends, you'd find a way. Trust me.
Yeah, and you'll do it so much and so hard because you're not allowed to do it. That there'll be no limit. There'll be no limit on how much you drink, on how far you go. Like the curfew, what's that? People just don't want the night to end. If they say 10 o'clock, go home, it's no longer go home. It's whose place are we going to continue the festivities? And these kids are just so hungry for that. And hey, man, just being 20 during this pandemic is just completely different. I can't.
Annette is dating herself here, but she says, yep, 1986 Margate was the place. And then Freedom Fighter says, Margate is like Hillbrow now.
Oh, no, that's so sad.
Yeah, that's terrible. I don't know. I mean, like, what are people doing for fun when they can't go on like matric holiday? What are they going to do? They're not going to sit at home.
That's tough.
They're not all nerds like I was. The most vaxxed country in the world is Israel. It's also the most infected country in the world. Can anyone even do maths anymore? Yeah, but the whole point of the vaccine is not to prevent transmission. That you can't do with a vaccine. What it does is if you get it, it makes it easier for you to survive it and to have less of the symptoms. That's what's going on. And at the moment, Lebang is the only one out of the 3 of us on the show this morning who's worried that she's been in contact with someone who could have COVID. So we're not going to let her come to the office today. Poor you.
That's cool. Oh, no. What am I going to do? Oh, man.
So terrible for you, right? So terrible.
But your Tish actually got vaxxed and he just recently caught COVID. So I'm interested to see how he's doing. I mean, he'll be joining us at 7:30. So I just want to quickly pop in that question. Like, how are you feeling? Vaxxed and sick? How's that working out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like when you do things properly, the English Premier League is fully back. Like America just had a full round of college, all their college playoff finals happened. It was a big thing in Georgia this weekend, like Alabama and Georgia, which are staples. 100,000, great. Pack him in there. If you're a guest, come on down. This is what happens when you do things properly, though, at every level, and we should be sad at what we are as a country. Like, we should be so mad at these people because I know I am. Like, nothing works. Nothing works. And it's always someone else's fault.
We wanted to just get back to some semblance of normality. And if people are responsible, which of course they aren't always responsible, but you've got to let people also make mistakes. There's the rule of Darwin, which is like, if someone's going to do stupid stuff and off themselves, you've got to let them do it. You can't put warning labels on everything.
And also the reason you need systems is most people are stupid. That's when systems kick in. Like that's the excellent part of when things work. oh, so and so, as any society, about 1% is morons. Great, we'll manage that. We'll mitigate that through systems. But nothing works in
100.
this country. It's infuriating.
Elon is God says, I'm kind of jealous that I haven't caught the COVID. And you know what? Robert says, no one even talks or thinks about acquired immunity. No one's talking about that. It's a real thing. And, you know, the Israelis have done the research. They've discovered it's between 6 and 13 times better immunity than the vaccine if you've actually got it. That's what the Israelis told us just the other day. And I don't think they're bullshitting. Israelis are not in a hurry to like off their own people. Just think about the history of the people who live there now, you know? If there's anyone who's not part of a conspiracy theory, it's those guys. Rob says, a different Rob says, the bill for expropriation of land has been published in the National Gazette for comment. Interestingly, it was done with no announcement, in the quiet and just before Christmas. That is interesting. I didn't know. I'll look into it, but that would be really sneaky of those political bastards. Really
Not
sneaky.
surprising. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mbulelo, I totally agree. In South Africa, absolutely nothing works unless it's privately run. That's
which
true,
is sad.
right?
Which is sad
Yeah.
because most people in South Africa are extremely poor. It's very sad.
Yeah, and it's all good and well that you said systems kick in when people aren't responsible, but I don't know that the systems that are being built by the people in charge here are working. In which case, you still end up having to rely on people to make their own responsible or irresponsible decisions.
Well, you have to maintain systems. You see, the thing is that the ANC never got their mandate is that you can't fix systems. You have to maintain them. Fixing and maintaining is not the same thing. See,
Yeah.
the great nations maintain constantly. I mean, you could use our plumbing, for instance. I mean, in what world should the northern suburbs of Johannesburg not have water for 6 days? It's impossible.
Oh, wow. On that note, I'm so excited because today they've just, I got a notice on our neighborhood WhatsApp group. You know, these things, you have to be on them these days. You can't not be on them, even if you don't like them. That they're going to cut off our water from 8 o'clock this morning until 5 o'clock this afternoon. That's great. I hope they're doing maintenance, in which case I won't be angry. But if they aren't doing maintenance and it's just because they've let it fall into disrepair, then I will be annoyed.
Rightfully so.
So I'll have to find out which one it is so I can complain or shut up. We'll have to see.
You need the
all
Karen
right.
lady from my complex. That's who you need.
Just, I would pay her to take over here. I would absolutely. So you let's just change tack here because you are, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Formula One at all, but I see a lot of people talking about it. So apparently, the last race on Sunday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
It's all
Abu
tied
Dhabi.
up in the final race, and this is going to be a big one. So I don't know about Formula One. I don't care about Formula One, but tell me why this matters.
Me neither. Motorsport is incredibly boring. Incredibly. It's a snore fest. But unless you join us on the MKT show with Spike Ballantyne after every race, then he's awesome. He loves it. I take the mickey out of it. But this weekend, Lewis Hamilton could become the greatest driver of all time. And it's literally, they're on this tide point. It's like a movie. It's scripted. And they were in Saudi Arabia this past weekend, and there were just so many incidents. But this weekend, it's all tied up between like precocious talent Max Verstappen and Sir Lewis Hamilton, who's avoiding tax, obviously, by living in Monaco. But anyway, that's a separate issue. Is this weekend they're going at it. And it's an awesome thing. At least we have some theater, like live theater that doesn't feel scripted to watch. I'm not big on Formula One, but this is going to be awesome. It's got everything.
I don't know.
Billionaires
I don't know
going
anything about
crazy,
Formula One.
great production. It's awesome.
I mean, okay, I'm also not a fan of Formula One, but I mean, Snowfest, are we not pushing it a little bit? Like, I think it's a little bit like, it's quite exhilarating, like sitting there and watching these, like there's a bit of like a
no, the cars don't make noise
boiling.
anymore. No. And listen, people like me and Greta Thunberg, because I'm the opposite of Gareth on this one, is I'm a big nature basher and we need to bring the carbon footprint down. People like me and Greta have ruined everything for Formula One fans. So if you watch now, the cars are completely silent. There are no more noise. Yeah, there's
No
zero
more
noise because of people like me. Yeah, me and Greta.
I wouldn't
How
say
dare
Snowfest.
Oh, wow. Freedom Fighter says, and I don't know if this is verified, but it's scary nonetheless. Mercury was found in the tap water in Kliptown after their water shut down 2 weeks ago. Check your water. Oh, my God. Now we're all going to have to get those testing kits and have to check our water. It's one thing we never really worried about in this country because we have pretty good systems for water. I mean, like, there are obviously places notwithstanding that have been ruined and where the various ministers of water affairs have not done their job. But like Rand Water in Joburg's been pretty good for many, many years. You open the tap, you can drink, which is not the case in many countries. Something we take for granted or took for granted. I don't know how true it still is, but we used to get like a clean bill of health from a water point of view. So that's an interesting thing, just, because it came up that they're switching off my water this week and that there are people who have not had water this week, which is really annoying. Okay, some people are saying that your voice is too loud and mine is too soft on the app. I don't know how we're going to fix that. We've actually got a problem at the moment because there's a little device that I use. I'm only bringing you in on this because otherwise you're going to think I'm full of shit. There's a thing we call the Comrex that I have to use, and the thing won't power up. So for the last 2 days, today and yesterday, we've been doing the show slightly differently. It should be fixed by tomorrow, though. So just bear with us if you are realizing that Mbulelo's levels are higher than mine, and that's fine. Usually he says a whole lot less than me in a show anyway, so you may as well hear him clearly.
Although I am also quite loud. So
okay, so someone wants Christine wants an update on what happened with you and your neighbors with kids. Any
Christine,
news there?
Absolutely glad to update you there, Christine. That guy and his kids and his family are moving back to India in May, so you'll be delighted to know the kids are getting evicted. It's fantastic.
Wow, that's heavy. That's heavy going. All right.
Well, I didn't get him extradited. But he's just moving back to India. But
you
for
guys
me, I'm just glad him and his kids are leaving the continent.
You've basically got them deported. That's what you've done.
Bruh.
Well, I was trying to get them out of my complex, him and his kids. But
so you played a big role in the decision to move back to India.
If there is a God, he came through. God said, you know what, you mediocre looking Xhosa man, let me help you out.
My word, I'd be so mad.
Oh, that's beautiful. Hey, do you guys, do either of you play board games or puzzles or any of that shit? Because I saw someone on Instagram the other day. I was scrolling through, and one of my friends is building like one of those. And Hanan brought this up as a metaphor yesterday. The 1,000-piece puzzles. I could think of nothing worse in the world. I would be bored after putting 3 pieces of the puzzle together, and I'd just give up and push the whole thing back in the box. I remember as a kid, you could not get me to concentrate on even those puzzles with like 8 pieces. I was like bored, stiff, hate puzzles. But some people are into that, hey? And you can go and buy these. I don't know what the biggest ones are. Probably like 10,000 pieces or whatever. I'm not even sure because I'm not a puzzle guy. But I saw this on Instagram the other day, and I just thought, what a horrible thing to do in the holidays. I'd rather sleep.
It depends. It depends. I mean, I do puzzles with my kids often, like when they want to. They'll be like, Mommy, let's do this puzzle. I'm like, cool. Whatever tickles your fancy. Sure, while the puzzle piecing is actually happening, like I'm definitely like yawn fest. But for them, I mean, it's like it's a bonding thing. It's like a thing that we're all doing together. So I have nothing against it. But would I, in my adult age, go and buy a puzzle for myself to sit down and do? The answer is a flat no. Sorry.
Yeah. No, there's no way I would do it. Not a chance. Right? Mbulelo, you're on the same page.
I would honestly rather be attacked by a crocodile and survive than have to do a puzzle. It is so boring. I don't know what including board games, by the way. I don't get like people are into board games and cards like that.
Come on.
Like, I find
30 seconds.
Snowfest.
Monopoly.
I never get a good partner. 30 seconds. Dude. Everyone thinks like I'm not being funny, but I do know a little bit extra from most people. So I think I'll be a good partner. And then I'm like, oh, that's a terrible partner. You don't know anything. You've never read a book. It always goes that way.
You're also super competitive and you take no fun in playing the game. You want to win.
I want to win.
Same here.
Yeah. If we're playing anything, that's why I hate board games. I want to win. Whatever I start, I want to win in life. I don't come from a Montessori school.
last year, it was the last time I played a board game with two of my friends, and it was fun. And it was like, I also won, which made all the difference, obviously, because I wouldn't have enjoyed it if I hadn't won. Because I used to play Risk with my brother. The board game where you take over the world. And I was not a good sport if it didn't go my way. And I always would come up with some strategy, and he would end up in Australia where there's only one place you can attack from, and he would put all his men there so that it took me like 5 or 6 rounds to destroy him. And it was just so frustrating, and I'd get really, really annoyed. And I don't think I could play that game anymore. I think I have lost the ability to enjoy it unless I win it. And that's really bad. I'm a terrible sport.
That's sad, dude.
You don't want me. You do not want me on your team in a game of 30 seconds, because if you can't ask the right question to get my answer, if I can't like prompt the right answer out of you, then I blame you, and I don't want to play ever again.
Oh, you suck.
And
I hate people like that.
You don't want to, and that's also so. No puzzles, no board games. I think this holiday those must be banned. I don't think they're good for anybody. Don't do it, people.
We are so similar in that sense. I'm the worst person to have in those settings. So I don't play anymore. It also went down to a point where, so like something that always happens is my mates always like, oh, you should play in our 6-a-side team. I'm like, no, you guys are terrible. Like, I'm good. Even at my old age now, I'm very good. I'm so good. An English club came and said, hey, come play for us.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Right. Stop talking about yourself.
Well, I mean, see, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Well, Simpiwe, our own Simpiwe at Cliff Central, she says she loves puzzles. She has a few boxes. It took her about 5 days to finish a 1,000-piece puzzle. Look at that.
Oh, girl.
We must
That's
talk.
What's up.
Let's talk to Simpiwe tomorrow and find out what the hell's going on in her head that she likes puzzles. Dominoes. Look at this. Jean says dominoes are still popular in Cape Town. There's no snooze fest there. Monopoly is torture, says Robin. Yeah, I think so. Cabello says cards.
Crazy 8. Oh, come on, Crazy 8. Come on. That's like when you see the real competitiveness.
Morabbit says Risk is part of the reason my first wife divorced me.
No, that's what you tell yourself, Morabbit. I'm with you. We all need a story for a cover, because I always.
Daniela says, I love a puzzle. Earlier this year, I developed an addiction to diamond dot artwork too. Okay.
Wow.
Dominoes are cool. You see, some people like this stuff. Simpiwe started a whole thing here. Now all the puzzle people are coming in. Huh. Okay. Well, there we go. Annette says, I bought puzzles in lockdown. I'm over it now, though.
A couple of weeks ago, I actually suggested to Rena that we do like board games in the office, just like and it hasn't happened because of the likes of you two. She was like, you can organize it if you'd like. Sounds like a good idea. I think at the back of her mind, she was like, the fuck no, it's not going to work at all. And now I'm seeing why she never really gave me the green light, because
Mbulelo and I are not going to play board games. You guys can play. We'll we'll throw in snide comments from the side, and
but it's not the board game. It's not about the board game. It's really about like how our personalities, gel, and you get to know things about the people you work with when they're in those situations. Like, I want to see Mbulelo getting that frustrated and just throwing the card on the floor and having.
All you're gonna do is hate us more.
I don't play anymore. I refuse to play 30 seconds moving forward. I will not play with anyone. Like, unless I knew. Like, honestly, unless like Gareth, if you were in, I'd be like, okay, cool. I'll let me play. I want Gareth as my partner. But I don't want to take a chance on your IQ.
You want us to win if we're a team, but you also want to beat me if I'm not on your team. It's a different motivation. The other people want to play the board game to, like what Lebang said, to get to know each other, to have some fun, to figure out each other's personalities. We are not interested in that shit.
Yeah, no. Peace. Bye, y'all.
Okay. So 1 or 2 things before we get to This Is Us. David says, Mabula, I think he means Mbulelo, because you've got so many variations of your name. You're talking horse cuck. They still make a noise. It's not Formula E. Those are electric cars.
Yeah, look, I went to Monza when I was younger. My dad's a big Ferrari fan. They used to make noise then. I hear them now. They might as well be walking around the track. I mean, come on. Come on, baby.
Jared says trivia board games are great, but anything with strategy and rules, I just can't be bothered with. See, there's different folks, different strokes for different folks.
Strokes.
What about Trivial Pursuit? Yeah. Again, so I would rather pick up a pack of Trivial Pursuit cards and play against myself, just the cards, not the game, the board, or any. Just pick up the cards and like see how many I can get, like score myself. But I don't want to play with other people. It's no good. Puzzles are a good alternative to watching paint dry, says AP. What's that, Siobhan?
No, I was gonna say, is that what you're doing like after matric instead of going to matric back and read? You want to know why?
Yeah, you want to know why I'm such a correct. That's how boring I am when nobody's watching. That's the kind of dumb stuff I do. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm not a gamer either. I've never had an Xbox or a PlayStation or any of that shit, so it's not for me. Nothing you can't get me involved in that stuff either. Okay, let us turn our attention to much more important things. Mbulelo, we'll see you tomorrow at 6:00. I'm going to let you do your thing. Welcome back to the show after a little bit of a hiatus. Yatish Nasi, how are you, Yatish?
How's it going?
He's back.
Good, nice to see you, man. You like board games?
Not really. I hate puzzles even more. I must be honest, I hate puzzles a lot more. Like I always say to anybody who says to me, let's do a puzzle, I'm like, I don't get it. You have to see the picture on the box so I know what's coming. And then I've got to spend however long making what I've seen on the box. Like, I don't understand the point.
I'm with you. I think we're probably in the minority because like Simpiwe is going to explain herself tomorrow and tell us why she likes puzzles. But maybe it's just something to stimulate the brain, pass the time. Maybe those people are smart in a way that we're not. I don't know.
Clearly,
anyway, it's time. It's time for another episode of This Is Us, and at 7:30 on a Tuesday, this is what we do. And we are joined by Yatish Nasi alongside Lebang Khosana, and we're going to have some real positive conversations in this space, which are solution-based. We want to answer the questions about what we can all do to make South Africa a better place. So, Lebang, we're in day 13 of 16 days of activism. What does that mean to you? And what does it mean to you, Yatish? And then you can intro our guest in a minute and tell us how Tears, the Tears Foundation, has so much to tell us and teach us this morning. First of all, Lebang, you're the woman. Gender-based violence is always like profiled as this woman's issue. It's not a woman's issue, but you go first.
Yeah.
You go first.
Yeah, so I mean, every year, 25th of November, we see people rally together and start putting on their army gear and say, oh no, GBV is so bad, GBV is this, GBV is that. Whereas the real issue is that this is not just something that happens or should be spoken about in this time of year. It's a forever thing, particularly in South Africa. I mean, we live in a country where GBV is in itself a pandemic. And I think after lockdown, it just got so much worse for women, especially for children, especially. So, it's nice that we can speak about this, but I'm more concerned with speaking to the people that are living it every single day, 365 days, and not just when it's time to speak about it. So that's why we're having Mara Glennie. She's obviously the founder and director of the Tears Foundation. And this is exactly what they do. They don't just speak about it when everybody's speaking about it. It's literally like it's in the core of what they do at Tears Foundation. So again, one of the things that makes them particularly stand out for me is that they're not saying, oh no, we've got GBV as an issue. Women, let's do something. This is a conversation for all South Africans. It's for men. It's for women. It is for all of us to really, to unpack. And it will get uncomfortable. I mean, it's not easy to sit and speak these hardcore facts and really be present, but it has to happen. These conversations need to happen. So, yeah. Hi, Marie.
Mara, it's good to have you on. Thanks for joining us this morning. And I'll ask you in a moment to tell us about the Tears Foundation. Perhaps I should just give the intro here in terms of the basic stuff, because you're probably it speaks for itself from your point of view. But you guys provide access to crisis intervention, advocacy counseling, and prevention education services for those who are impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual abuse. This is tough stuff and not the kind of thing that people love talking about, but you've made it your life. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got involved in this. We just got to. I think you're on mute, or we can't hear you there, Mara. Just see if you can get your. I can't hear you. There we go. Talk to me now. Nope, still not working. Do you want to? Yeah, go off and come back on, and then we'll get you back in. I think I'm going to let you go out, and then I'll kick her out, then she can come back. Yeah, Tish, while we're waiting for her to come back, your feelings on 16 days of activism? What's your overwhelming feeling about this?
Yeah, same thing. It's especially, I suppose, with the way the country is at the moment. I haven't even seen or heard much about it in these last couple of days. It seemed to, other years it's probably more prevalent. But this year there just hasn't been enough attention, right? I think everyone's so caught up in it's back burner. There's just so much else going on. And that's probably the danger at the moment with so much in South Africa, right? There's so much on the back burner because all that's on the headlines, I guess, rightfully so, is fourth wave, other things going on. And to Lebang's point, it probably got worse during lockdown. So this is just another one of those issues that is really, really forgotten. And me personally, because it doesn't touch me on the sort of daily, it's not something that I'm close to or experience like so many South Africans. We tend to forget about it, myself included. I must be very honest. When I hear about 16 days, I go, oh yes, I remember that. But in my daily, it's hard for me to think about it, which is scary.
Let's see if we can get Mara back on. Hey, Mara. No, still can't hear you. Don't know what's going on there. Have you got something plugged in, like a microphone or something? Or are you just talking through your laptop mic? Because we can't hear a thing, and it looks like everything's working on our side, so it must be coming from you. Maybe Simpiwe can help you sort that out, but we can't hear you at all. Damn. All right. And let you try and figure that out again. Damn. Hate it when that happens. Yeah. Okay. Let's just talk about this 16 days thing from a practical point of view. I feel like this is being used, like so many other things are being used, by politicians and even by corporations who hop on the 16 days bandwagon to just cover them so that they can say we've done something or we are involved somewhere. We're seen to be doing something rather than we're doing something, because we know, and I'm sure Mara will tell us in a moment or two, these things are not things that can be solved by government or by companies. They really can't. These things need to be solved at the family level. They need to be solved at the individual level. The men who are committing these acts of violence against women have serious psychological issues to unpack. They've often got, bad sort of backgrounds. They don't necessarily have happy homes that they come from. They're perpetuating that cycle of violence. It's stuff that we spoke to Charlie Peterson about the other day. And nobody wants to talk about that because it's not sexy. It's easier for a politician to get up and say, we've got these 16 days of activism. Now, I don't know who's done anything during 16 days of activism, but I'll guarantee you that the only stuff we'll see is the usual propaganda and not a whole lot of action. The people who are doing the work are doing it well beyond those 16 days of activism. They're working every day, people like Mara, to make a difference. And they're not getting the attention for 16 days, which is why we brought her on this morning. You agree?
Yeah, and it's quite obvious, right? When the government or like a big brand is really just doing a campaign just to tick a box that we did our part, and immediately after that 16 days, it's like back to reality. And Tish, I like what you said, and I think I really appreciate your honesty about the fact that because it's so far away from you, you're not necessarily exposed to it all the time, and really you forget that it's even happening. Only when it comes closer to you do you actually realize that, oh crap, this is the reality. And it's that sad concept of we'll only freak out when it happens to our sister or our cousin or our aunt. But when we see something happening like on the timeline, like, oh, this and this happened to me, you question that person's truth and I guess their story. And what we're realizing now more and more, just to bring it sort of back to the whole Jup and Amanda Du-Pont thing, is that women are coming out with their stories and their experience of GBV and sexual assault and the public at large is just generally like not believing anything and is literally accusing these people of making stories up. And it's almost as though your truth is no longer valid because of various reasons. Number one, why are you coming out so late with your story? Why didn't you report this to the police as soon as it happened? Or number two, why are you only responding to this now to attack the person? Are you trying to gain something out of it? So there's such a lack of education from the audience's side, where it's like, sure, okay, cool. Some people do make false allegations. We get it. But there are more cases where that is not happening. There are more cases where these women are really experiencing these things and no justice is being served. So it is one of those tough conversations. I'm glad we've got Mara on today, because the education aspect for me is just mind-blowing because it's missing. Oh, geez, Gareth, are you speaking now? We can't hear you.
No. There we go. So let's try one more time to get Mara back on. And Mara, hopefully you can speak to us now. Hello. Still no.
Nothing.
Still can't hear you. I don't know what's going on there. Sorry, Mara, I don't know what we're going to do here. I'm going to have to let you go back to Simpiwe and we try and figure this out. Yeah, we could probably get you, except no, it's not going to work on the phone. No, it's not going to work. All right. Listen, I want to ask you about something you just brought up now. This whole thing with Amanda Du-Pont and Jub, and the fact that people are coming forward and telling their stories, which I think they need to do. There's no reason that anyone should suffer in silence. I think that there are serious issues around people who do make false allegations. We discussed that a little bit earlier on the show. It's a very touchy subject. But what happens in a situation where someone does make a false allegation is it has the effect of making all the real situations seem trivial. And it makes the trivial ones seem real. And I think that does an enormous disservice to real victims. And anytime, and there are people who, for various reasons, have throughout time tried to lay false allegations at the feet of men and women, frankly, and that doesn't help the situation. It almost has the opposite effect of what it's supposed to do. It's meant to, a lot of people say, make other women comfortable with telling their story. But what it does is it makes them look like they might also be making it up. So we've got to be super careful about this. There needs to be a consequence for people who make nonsense allegations. And I'm not saying in the Jub and Amanda Du-Pont case, I know anything, because I don't know a damn thing. I only discovered this story on Friday, and I'm still kind of trying to get my head around it. But there also seems to be like a game that gets played where if things don't go the way that one of the people want, then they say that something has happened, which is criminal. Now, if it is criminal, it has to go to court. It has to be prosecuted. There's an ugly and lengthy process there. Makes it very, very difficult for the victim and obviously for the person who's accused. But there needs to be a process in place here. And if people are just going to make allegations on social media, for example, that also makes it seem trivial and silly. And gender-based violence is not trivial and silly. It's not something that should be arbitrated by nobodies on social media. And there are people who are saying, that Amanda's making things up in this case, or that Jub is being an asshole again because he's got a track record. But those people are just the peanut gallery. These are very serious things that need discussion. And it shouldn't be happening on social media.
I don't know, Gareth, social media can be used differently. And for somebody like Amanda Du-Pont, somebody like Jub, even somebody like McG, these are people that are in the public eye. So they would use these platforms to speak on whatever they want to speak on, just generally because that's the nature of the industry that they're in and the position that they're in the industry. I completely understand why Amanda would go onto social media and record a video of herself explaining her trauma and her experience, because in the same way, what triggered this whole thing was that Jub was on a public platform. He was on McG's podcast, speaking very flimsily about his encounters with Amanda, using really derogatory words like smash and, bang and whatever the case is. Whereas from her memory, they were in a 2-year relationship where he repeatedly raped her. So for her, you repeatedly raped me for 2 years. For him, I was smashing that. So, social media is the place where they would come and speak their sides of the story and try and, get their points across or whatever. I don't think it's the use of social media. I do agree, though, that you know, when you do put such sensitive information out there and it's open to the world, you will get some nonsense opinions. You will get rubbish comments from people that really don't matter. And the real sad thing is that most of these comments and most of these opinions are quite baseless, and you can tell these people that are commenting are so uneducated and kind of one-sided in their thinking. At no point, you know, were people kind of like really dissecting both sides. It was almost just like a, well, Amanda,
and I
you're
mean,
lying.
also,
Because
everybody's in everybody's business these days. You know, it's like, and unfortunately, what you're saying is like, you know, in the case of both of these people, and everyone's talking about it. Everyone has the right to talk about whatever they want. But this was all aired. People are airing their dirty laundry in public, so it's going to become a public conversation. What do you think of that, Yatish? I mean, it's so messy.
I mean, there's two sides to it, right? On the one hand, I buy what you're saying about going, it's super sensitive. People need to be mindful about accusing somebody if it's obviously not the case, and vice versa. But the other hand, I'm thinking, you know, talking about it is such a new behavior that we're gonna get it wrong by talking about it, right? Somebody is gonna talk about it in the incorrect way or pick an incorrect medium to talk about it on. But unless we go through that pain of figuring out what's the right way to do it, what'll continue to happen is we won't talk about it. So then we'll never know. So I don't know. You know, part of me is going, maybe this just must run its course, and we have to figure out what's the appropriate way to manage it and what you can and can't say. Because also, you know, again, it's difficult for me to talk about it because it's just not my experience. But I can imagine someone who's been through it going, did that happen to me or didn't that happen to me? I'm not sure, you know. And so by being exposed to lots of them, maybe starts to formulate an opinion and go, yeah, okay, this is worth talking about from my side.
Well, there's a point being made here, which I think is interesting, by Lindiwe. Lindiwe says people could be in abusive marriages for years without reporting it. And we know that happens, right? We know that there are people in quiet desperation all over the place. And I think it's probably worth taking into consideration that for many of those people, those go unreported, that kind of abuse, that kind of ugly domestic situation. We've also got to remember that the most scary thing that a lot of people don't want to confront about rape in South Africa is that it's not perpetrators of rape and victims who are unknown to each other. Those do occur, but it's a rare thing. Most of the gender-based violence and the rape and all the other associated ugliness and trauma is perpetrated by someone who is known to the victim. Right? These are not strangers. It's not someone walking on the street and suddenly breaking into your house and physically abusing you. And as horrible as that is, and it does happen, that's not the reality. That's how we picture it in our minds when we think of these things. But actually, it's the husband, the uncle, the cousin, the stepbrother, whoever it might be. Those are the people who are doing the damage. And these are not strangers. These are not like random, distant criminals who we can objectively look at and say, well, that's a bad person. These are the same people who say, I love you, and then hurt you. That's something we've got to come to terms with.
Obviously, like unpacking the psychological reasons as to why a person would do that it really goes back to how a person was raised and their environment and how they were treated but the real scary thing is usually the reaction of the family once this has, you know, become a fact. I bring this up because I was speaking to a lady not so long ago who shared an experience from her childhood where there was like a grand uncle who would just rape all the girls. Everybody knew it. It was a known fact in the community, but nobody did anything about it. And when I was speaking to her, she was a little bit scared. She's like, if anybody hears me even speaking about this, I'll get shunned from the family because I'm not supposed to speak about this. We all know it. It's a fact. This is our grand uncle who does whatever he pleases to all the little girls in the family, but you're not allowed to speak about it. And that really scared me because, you know, the reaction from really the people that you trust, as you said, Gareth, it's the people that say, I love you. It's the people that should be taking care of you. They're the ones that are ultimately by them keeping quiet, their silence is pretty loud. You know, they're letting this thing happen, and nobody ends up standing up for you. And then you feel like, okay, maybe I should keep quiet. Maybe I shouldn't go to the police and report it. Maybe I shouldn't tell mom that stepdad is doing ABC. As a victim, you also just fall to silence, because if the adults around you aren't doing anything about it, then who are you? Just a victim. And it's crazy because the cycle goes on and on and on. So on one end, hurrah to social media. It's giving people, you know, some sort of power in a sense to be able to speak up about their stories, because in hopes of encouraging other people who have experienced the same things. But before social media, it was just like, yo, shut up and keep quiet and go on with your life with this trauma.
I'm going to try one more time to bring Mara in on this, because shame, I know she's been waiting and she's been ready, and we did a test call with her and everything. Mara, can we try one more time? Hello. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We were really looking forward to speaking to you, Mara. I don't know what to say. We've tried everything this morning. I'm going to let you go, and I promise you we'll catch up and we'll make up for this, because I do want to hear about your foundation. They're called the Tears Foundation. And as I said earlier, they provide access to crisis intervention, advocacy, counseling, prevention, education services for those impacted by domestic violence, sexual, child abuse. And I was really hoping to speak to her, but I'm so sorry we're not going to be able to do that for whatever reason this morning. They do amazing stuff. They action all kinds of real change. They bring about dialogue, uncomfortable conversations. They encourage more men to participate in these conversations, because often it's, as we said at the beginning, when I handed over to Lebang, it's women who are forced to carry this conversation, and it shouldn't be. I mean, that's part of the problem. And there's stigma around why some women don't report sexual assaults, and I was hoping to talk to Mara about that too. But you've kind of hinted at some of that too this morning, Lebang.
Yeah, no, they really do a lot. It would be dope to have them back. I think what I really like about Tears is that they offer like support beyond just like, okay, we'll help you now with what you're dealing with, and then after this, like, peace out, go do your thing. They have like ongoing counseling, support groups, like a whole bunch of stuff that is literally free of charge. They've got like a 24/7 like free call line. If you don't have airtime, you can just pop in like a *134* type of thing. So really, they catering to, you know, the needs of these victims and the needs of the people that are generally exposed to this on the daily. Like, I can tell you, in the townships, it's rife. It's rife. And as I said earlier, literally during lockdown and after COVID began, it just got bad, because now people are stuck at home.
They're stuck.
With these guys.
Right.
They're stuck. They can't leave the house. If your rapist is living in the same roof as you, you have to deal with him every single day in your face. Whereas before, you know, he could maybe go to work, or she could go to work, or whatever the case is. Now, this is your reality. So it did get bad. The numbers did go up. And again, it almost just seems like life continued. And things do happen. COVID is still top of mind. Things are happening, blah, blah, blah. GBV is an everyday struggle, more in this country than any other country. We are the capital of rape. That's crazy.
Okay, so this is why we have this show. Is this us? And what part of this do we have to face up to? And what part do we have to own? And how do we change it if it is us?
Yeah, the thing I always, if you do think about this issue, the reality is, statistically, to your point, Lebang, the rape capital of the world, and 99.9% of that is perpetrated by men, right? It's not like it's, you know, so I find these 16 days, or whenever we do talk about the issue, interesting, because we focus on the victim portion, right? We go, look, shame this is happening to women and kids and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, yeah, we really talk about the elephant in the room, which is to say, look, for whatever reason, why is this the thing with men in our society, right? Why is it, you know, why aren't we addressing it? If I think about the work Charlie's doing, right, to say, Charlie was going, look, we sort of try to get a sense of why fathers aren't there, and we try to deal with that issue at that level, right? Which is to say, usually it's for whatever reason, and we're going to try to intervene. You know, in a similar way, you know, we talk so much about the victims and should they be reporting and should they be saying and should they be brave enough to take things on. But what about the perpetrators, right? Like, how much are we doing at the perpetrator level to say, should we be talking to boys at an early age? Should we be, I'm not sure. Again, I don't know, but it's, if it's such a systemic issue, as opposed to just thinking about how we support the victims, how are we trying to proactively get to the perpetrators, or I don't know.
Well, also, I suppose we also got to talk about how there are men who protect other men. There are guys who will stand up, and frankly, women who protect perpetrators because it's their son or it's their brother or it's someone else. You know how people are. I don't think there are people who go around in society saying rape is good. Even the people who are doing it must know at some level it's bad. But there's something about our society that we excuse this kind of behavior when it's someone that we love or it's in our families, because clearly in South Africa, there are people who know this is going on and don't say anything. People who should be saying to these guys, hey, listen, this is not on. You can't keep getting away with this just because, you're the father of the house or because you're an elder in the community or whatever it might be. We know that that's part of the problem. And, there are moms who would never countenance the fact that their sons behave like this. That we need to address too. There's something, I don't know if it's a problem with us because of our traumatic past in South Africa and the fact that we've come from such that people are so emotionally broken. And that's no excuse, obviously, for individuals perpetrating bad behavior. But I think maybe there's a cultural part of this too that we need to address. And that's difficult to say.
Yeah. Again, where do you start, right? You can go all the way back to the household and the nature of the household. But on a bigger scale, it's definitely a cultural thing. And I can obviously only speak for my experience. And within the Black community, there's a saying that abantu bazothini, like what will people say? And I know this isn't just doesn't only exist in the Black community, but how I've seen it is that it's quite dangerous because you end up protecting nonsense behavior and you end up protecting these people out of fear of, if people found out that indeed this is what's happening behind closed doors in our family, then we'll get judged or we'll get shunned or whatever the case is. And unfortunately, due to all of our traumatic experiences and all the emotional hurt and trauma and the stuff from the past that nobody has healed from, by the way, we just continue these cycles and we carry these things that we've learned and we just do it from generation to generation versus unlearning certain things and saying, hey, you know what? If something is bad, we have to call it out. Call a spade, even if it's your brother, your mother, your sister, your cousin. If it's you, you have to be able to call it out. And we live in fear to a certain extent of like, abantu bazothini, what will they say if they find out the truth about me and the truth about our family, and we need to uphold our reputation. And that is sad because these victims and these perpetrators grow up and do the same thing with their own children and their children's children, and then.
Well, Global Cut Unfiltered says, it's truly a sensitive issue. It should be taken seriously. We as the public should not jump to conclusions because sadly, sometimes it is a false accusation. Raisibek says he's a convicted, this is obviously Jub, he's a convicted criminal, case closed. No room for any argument from that one. We are talking about the issue at hand. Come on, Amanda is a married woman. That's another part of this, that needs to be unpacked. And Lindiwe says, if it has happened close to home, you wouldn't understand the psychological trauma. And maybe for all we know, Lindiwe is speaking from experience. I hope not. And I just want to say at the end of this, because we've got to wrap it up. If you are a woman who has dealt with this, who is dealing with this, there are loads of people like Mara, who I'm so sorry we couldn't speak to today, who are doing incredible work to make it just a little bit more bearable, who can help you get out of these situations. There are safe houses. There are organizations like Power who are doing all the hard work to make it possible for you to break out of a cycle that you shouldn't be in, that you don't deserve, that is not your fault. And I'm talking to you as an individual now. I'm not talking South African women. I'm not talking government. I'm not talking the Department of Women, Children, and People with Disabilities, or any of that stuff. Saying if it's happening to you, please, there are people who can help you. There are people who care. There are people who will hold your hand through the process. You do not have to face this on your own. And it's going to take a huge amount of courage for you to break out of that. But this is why we're talking about it this morning, to give you hope, to give you a way out. You do not need this in your life, and you don't deserve it, and you don't have to put up with it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we can say this morning. I'm sorry we couldn't get Mara on, guys. I really wanted to hear what she had to say. Tish, thanks for joining us. I'm glad that you're feeling better, because you had the vid, didn't you?
I did. The latest version.
Oh, man. Omicron. Is it worse or is it better?
It's a cold. Fortunately, it's a cold. If I didn't know, if it wasn't called Omicron, I would have had 2 panados and carried on. But yeah,
there we go. All right, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Cheers.